No, seriously, my name is Jim Richardson, and I was asked to make this tape for a couple of guys that I think they're going to use it in school for social studies, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What do you want to know about first? Service term.
Right, how long were you in the
I
service?
was in the service for 24 years, 1 month, and 16 days. I started out in World War II with the United States Seabees.
How old were you when then?
17. I went in on my birthday.
Were you drafted or did you?
No, I enlisted in the Navy. In the Seabees, they didn't draft in the Seabees at that time.
I see.
What was your purpose in joining
then we
the
were
Seabees?
attached in the Seabees. Well, they were construction crews. They were specialists. And actually, I joined the Navy, and I was put in. What you had was a long line of troops, you know, taking your physical all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a guy come down, and he says, "Okay, you guys come over into this line," and we went over in that line, and that was the Seabees, and that's how I got into the Seabees. But I took training down in Virginia, Camp Prairie, Virginia, and I went out after my basic training, or boot camp as we call it. I went out for underwater demolition, and I flunked down on my ears. I got down about 63 feet. And my ears popped, so that ended that life. And I wound up in Cooks and Baker School after that. And I spent most of my time in the Seabees as a cook. And we left California and went to Guadalcanal. I was down there, served with the Marines on Guadalcanal. And come back from World War II and December 22nd of 1945, we hit the States, and I got out in May of 46. I got hit in the Pacific, and that kind of delayed my discharge a little bit. And I stayed out for a while, and I drove a trolley car and a bus in Philadelphia, and I had itchy feet, I guess. That plus the fact I was laid off from my job, so then I re-enlisted in the Army. I tried to get in the Army or the Navy and the Marines, but they weren't accepting any more enlistees that were married. So I went down and joined the Army. And I went down to Fort Knox and took basic training all over again. And I stayed there 3 years as a drill instructor. And I got discharged on the 5th of June of 1950. The war broke out the 27th of June, and I got recalled in July to active duty, and I went down to Fort Campbell, Kentucky with the 11th Airborne Division, and I stayed down there until January the 7th, I believe it was, of 51, and we boarded ship and went aboard. Well, we got on a plane and flew to California and went by surface transportation to Pusan, Korea.
I heard you told me before the show, really, that before you all left, you were a sergeant.
Yeah.
And you were in charge of quite a group of men. And
when we went AWOL?
Yeah, when you
I
hadn't
thought
seen
that's what you're getting at. Well, I'll tell you what happened. We were down there, let's see, September, October, November, December, and nobody had a pass or leave or anything like that. And a bunch of old men really called back to active duty, trying to get them in shape. And we all wanted to go home and see our families. We knew we were going to Korea, so we wanted to come home and see our families, before we left. So I was a mess sergeant at that time. I run the mess hall. So we had, like I said, we had master sergeants, tech sergeants, staff. I was a buck sergeant at the time. So we were trying to figure a way to get a 3-day pass, and they just weren't giving them out. No leaves, no Christmas leave or anything. So I was up pretty tight with the first sergeant. And I asked him, I said, if I managed a way to get out of here, can you cover for me? And he said, yeah. So in our particular barracks, we had about 158 men, I think. I think that's what it was, 158 men. Double-deck barracks. And I got PO'd one night when I came in from the kitchen, and I says, any of you, excuse the French, bastards want to go home? We're leaving now. What do you mean? You got passes for us? I said, no, you got to put on a Class A uniform. We're going to have a formation right out in front of the barracks. So they didn't know what was going on, and they hem-hawed around. I said, well, you better get your shower and get ready. I'm going to leave. So anyway, most of the guys came out, just about all of them. And we had a formation, and I told them what we were going to do. So I called them to attention and gave them a facing movement, and we started marching in a column of ducks, or, you know, side by side. And we come down by the main gate of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And the MP gate sets back, oh, maybe 50 yards off the main road. So I'm going down there with the old hut haw, you know, and PFC, MP there were two of them. And one of them come over and he says, extra duty, Sarge? I said, well, you can't get it done during duty hours, God damn it, you take them out at nighttime and show them how to do it. And we marched out the gate, and we hit the main highway, and we headed for Clarksville, Tennessee. It's about 2 miles away. I gave them a column right. We were up the highway about 100 yards. I said, you bastards, you're outside the gate. You're on your own now. I went back 10 days later. They all came back.
Did they get in trouble?
No, we all made it. Because they knew we were going to Korea. Shit, by the time they court-martialed us, we'd have, you know, would have kept us out of Korea, and they couldn't afford it then because they needed troops bad. So we left there right after we got back and went to California, and like I said, we got on a ship, went to Pusan. And when we arrived in Pusan, you go to what we call a REPL depot, replacement depot. And that's where they assign you to your different divisions, and I was assigned to the 9th ROK Division, or Republic of Korea Division, as an advisor. And I went up to Daegu, which was our headquarters at that time, and it was also 8th Army headquarters. They were side by side. So we went in there. I stayed about 3 days and got briefed and whatnot. Got a few uniforms, extra uniforms, and then from there I went on up to meet my division, you know, or company, whatever. And what it was, we had when I finally got up to the company, they flew us up as far as we could, and then a couple of people come down and picked us up in a Jeep and a trailer. So, tell him no. We came down, or they came down and picked us up. We went up to the division, or division headquarters, what it was, couple big tents up there. And we had 37 Americans. There were 31 officers of the rank. Well, we had 2 lieutenant colonels, we had 1 captain, and we had 28 majors, and we had 6 enlisted men. And each one was, or several were assigned to each regiment within the division. We had the 28th, 29th, and 30th regiments, and then we had the 29th Field Artillery. That was a battalion. And you go out and talk with them, try and teach them a few things. You stay with them a while, and then you come back to your base camp, and you go out again and come back to your base camp. One of those things, you know, rotating bases like. And I was back in base camp on the night of the 16th of May. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess. And I was in a tent with a couple Korean boys, and they worked in the mess hall. Well, a tent, whatever you want to call it. So the colonel come running up and put his head in the flap, and he says, Rich, how about getting somebody in there to make us a pot of coffee, bring it down to war room? Sure will. So one of the boys got up and went down and made a pot of coffee. I got up, got dressed, and I went down. I said, what's up? And he says, well, we were supposed to push off, as you know, at 5 o'clock in the morning. We had a big offensive ball planned. And this is about 2. And he said, the Chinks beat us to it. They're coming down. They've already wiped out the 3rd Division. And they've been pounding on the 7th Division. These are all ROK divisions over on the East Coast. So he said, you better go back and wake everybody up and tell them to saddle up and pull the tents down. He said, we'll get as much as we can out of here. So we waited. We pulled everything down. Everybody got dressed and all, packed everything up. And we waited till about 6:30 in the morning, I guess. And he said, well, we better move out. So we all got on the trucks. I was driving a Deuce and a half with a 1-ton trailer behind it. And we only had about 6 vehicles, I guess. Big vehicles. You know, water tankers and stuff like that. And we were heading up this, well, there are little 1-lane roads over there, really. When you go to pass somebody, you have to get in the ditch. And we got up into this road department. It took us over to Mountaintop. And when we got about 2/3 of the way up, traffic was stopped up, and we got out to find out what was going on. And there were many, many Koreans up there, South Koreans, and there was a Korean colonel. And we asked him, what's the scoop, you know, and he said, well, there's chinks out there, we think. And we asked him if he sent out patrols, find out what's going on. He said, no. How long you been here? About 3 hours. So we got on his butt and we formed some patrols and sent them out. And there were chinks out there, all right, and North Korean, guerrillas. So we set up a line of a perimeter, is what you call it. And we made sure everybody had plenty of ammunition and all. About half of them Koreans took off, South Koreans took off, and they started heading south. And so that left us there to try and kind of hold them off a little bit. And as it turned out, why, we didn't do it. And I read in Time magazine, or one of those magazines when I come back, that what we were hit with at that time was the 7th Chinese Field Army, which consisted of 750,000 troops. So I guess we were let loose a little bit, you know, for not doing our job. But that's when I got picked up. Well, not really. We were defending ourselves and taking positions up as best we could, and we saw there was no way to get out of there. So what we did, another fellow and myself, he was a mess sergeant, we dove down a big ditch. I guess it was...
Wait, before that happened, how did you get shot and all this?
Well, we were underneath the frame of a Deuce and a half by the back wheels, and he was left-handed. Fortunately, I was right-handed, and he had a carbine. I had an M1. So laying down, and you know, when you're laying down, if you're right-handed, you're going to lay toward your left side, and consequently, I had good vision from my right to center. And it was awkward when I come around this way, and him being left-handed, he took this half. And we never thought about the guys coming down behind us because they weren't coming from that direction. But a couple of them snuck around our ends and come in behind us. So it'd be much like a defensive end coming in and on a blitz or something, hitting the quarterback before he gets out of the pocket, or gets into the pocket, really. But anyway, one of these guerrillas come up and leaned against the front bumper of the Deuce and a half, and he unloaded. And I caught 5 of them up the left side. It's 30 caliber, or 28 caliber, I think is what they use. It's a Burt gun. They have automatic fire on there. They put a clip in with 75 rounds in it, and it has a lot of trigger action, if you want to call it that. They can spit out a lot of bullets, but they don't have any real firepower behind them, you know. Mm-hmm. None of them passed through me. They all stayed in. So I mean, a short distance of a truck, you know, length of a truck. So that's when we went off to the side. Well, we pulled the bolts out, and I threw mine one way, and he threw his another way, and we broke the stocks in half, you know, as you can easily do. And we tried to throw them in different directions, and then we went down over this cliff. It was, it must have been about 150 foot deep, I guess. We went down that damn thing head first, because there were high weeds down there, and we hid out in the weeds. And there were 3 or 4 patrols come by, and fortunately I had enough blood on me, and when they walked by, they looked and they figured I was dead, and they just probed me a little bit with a bayonet, and I didn't move, so they kept on going. But then finally this one patrol come down. They were stringing field wire for telephones, and I heard this guy's name was Carcerud was with me, and he started moaning or talking or something. I don't know what, but I heard a noise, and it was an American voice. And I figured, well, I'm going to stay with him wherever he goes, whatever he's doing. He's talking, I'm going to talk too. I mean, you know, let him know I'm alive. So they probed us a little bit with bayonet, and then finally they picked us up and took us up to a little hut that was up above there. And that's where our interrogations began. That was on the morning of the 18th, I guess. Yeah, because we had stayed overnight. I remember the sun going down. I'd go in and out of a coma, shock, whatever you want to call it. But the morning of the 18th, after we got up to this house, they interrogated us a while, and man told me I should get on the PA system there that they had and tell my comrades in arms to lay down their guns and come on over to his side and all that, and I told him no. So he pulled a pistol out and cocked it and put it to my head, and he says, "You talk or I shoot." I said, "Well, go ahead and shoot. You ain't going to get any more information if I'm dead." And I don't know where that made sense to him or what, but he didn't fire it, thank God. So we left there. They got us bundled up, and when I say bundled up, incarcerated myself, and we started walking. Like I said, it was the 18th of May. And we walked and walked and walked, and here and there we'd pick up another guy or two, and finally there was a group of us. And finally on the 1st of November, we reached a camp on the west coast of Korea, of North Korea. It was up above Pusan, which is the capital. I guess it was maybe 200 miles north of the 38th parallel. And they put us in a, well, what they did, they took over a village. It was the street went down, you know, you had like Pennsylvania Avenue, you had houses on both sides, such as they were, thatched roofs and mud walls. And they chased all the people out and put us in there. And we averaged about 35 to 40 people in a room that was about 6 feet square, 7 feet square. And we stayed there until the 11th of July 1952, and they decided that the NCOs, or sergeants, were advising the younger privates and PFCs too much as far as interrogation and what they should or should not do, so they separated us. Call it what you want, bias or segregation, whatever you want, but they took all the NCOs out and put us in a special camp. Well, they didn't actually put us in a special camp, we built it. They took us, we walked from the 11th of July, and we got up there in October. I guess it was about the 14th of October. We arrived right on the northernmost tip of North Korea, right on the Yalu River, a little town called, the heck was the name of that town? I just had it now, I forget it. But anyway, we stayed there for one night. They chased the inhabitants out of that town. And they decided, I guess it wasn't big enough, so we started walking again, and we wound up in Manchuria. So we figured we were going up to the salt mines.
Siberian.
Yeah, but we stayed in Manchuria for, I guess, about 29, 30, 29 days, I guess, 30 days, something like that. And then they decided to bring us back into North Korea. And they put us out in a huge field, and they brought in some trucks with barbed wire on it, poles and shovels and whatnot. So we dug holes, strung barbed wire around, and then we had to build a rock wall, and we were on the inside of it. And that's where we stayed until we got released. Conditions were quite poor. In almost 3 years, or 2.5 years, I never got an aspirin tablet. Nobody received any medical aid. For dental care, we used to take a twig off of a tree and sharpen it on a rock as best we could, make it into a convex form on the end, and just lay it against the tooth and somebody would bang it. And you had one guy hanging on each arm and one on each leg, and one guy holding your head and one laying across your stomach, because it hurt like hell. But it was a matter of about 2 hours of pure hell or an indefinite period of toothaches. So we took what we thought was the easiest course out.
I mean, you knocked them out.
Yeah. I had one cavity when I went there, because we had physicals in the States, and I had one cavity, and I come back and I had 4 teeth left on the top.
Man, that gets to be a little hairy.
Like I say, it's 2 hours of pure hell. You wish you were dead. But eventually, you know, it healed over, thank goodness, and no infections, and we lived. Everybody had amoebic dysentery.
Isn't that how your friend died? The guy was with
Yeah,
you when you got shot.
yeah, when we were marching, making the long walk north. Well, we started out when we met up with the main body, which was I guess it was about the 15th of June. Just 2 of us walked for a month, and then about the 15th of June we met up with several other groups that had been captured, mostly the guys from the 24th Division and the 5th RCT. Pardon me. And we started out with about 794 men. I think it was 793 men. And when we hit St. Andrew, what was that? That was July, August, September, October. 4 months later, we had 260 men.
500 almost.
Well, they either died from dysentery, disease, gunshot wounds, or if they couldn't keep up with a column, then the guards would shoot them. Push them over the side of the road, cliff, whatever, when we'd be up on the mountaintop. You had to keep moving. If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to ask the guard to get permission, and then you run as far up to the column as you could, to the front, toward the front. And you go ahead and drop your pants and do what you can, and you better be ready to fall back in line by the time the last of the column is going by, because if you're not there, then they just shoot you right where you were. There was no, big thing for them. Meals consisted of, well, they gave us little tin bowls about the size of the average sugar bowl, I guess, back here, that we put on our dining room table. And it was millet. Millet is what we use back in the States. You'll find it on the bottom of a bird cage. It's like a gray or a yellow seed. And they would boil that up and put it into these bowls for us. Of course, it had many maggots in it. It was about half maggots and half millet. And they were feeding us twice a day for a while. Well, when we first went up there, it was when we were making the march, it was about once every 4th day on the average. And you got 1 bowl of that, and that was it. And anything you could steal. I took an apple off a little girl. She was standing, I guess she was about 5 years old, 4 years old. Standing on the side of the road, and she was eating an apple. She had about 1 or 2 bites out of it, and her hand was out. I don't know whether really she was offering it to one of the guys, or whether it was just, she had taken a bite and holding her hand out there. But I come along, and I just grabbed it out of her hand, and the whole apple went in my mouth. Seeds, core, the whole damn thing, boy, right down. So I got a few jabs for that with a bayonet. But I cried myself to sleep that night, because I had a daughter about the same age. And, it makes you think. And it was shortly after that that I come down with dysentery for the first time, and I guess I had gone up to the latrine or the bathroom about 19 trips. And it's like a pus that you pass, as opposed to having a regular bowel movement. And one time I couldn't make it, and I had to right in my drawers. Of course, many other guys had done the same thing previously. So it's another night you cry yourself to sleep. You figure, what the hell? I'm a grown man. I'm 26 years old, and here I am, throwing my pants up. But that's neither here nor there. That's just another little thing. We got off the millet. We had that for about 9 months. We got off of that, and they gave us stuff called sorghum. Sorghum is a sort of a purplish thing that looks like rice, really, I guess. But it's purple in color, and back here in the States they extract the juice from it, and they use that to make steering wheels for automobiles. And then they process it in another form, I don't know what it is, and they use it for feed for horse races, or racehorses. I'm good at that yet. We were on that for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, I guess. And then we went on a turnip diet. Well, they have real hot turnips. They're white. They're shaped like our carrots, but they're much larger. They're about the size and circumference of a cucumber, and they're about the length of 2 cucumbers almost. And they are hot. Hot damn, they're hot. And we were on them things for about 4 or 5 months. Then we went back to sorghum, or millet. The entire time we were there, we got rice once, and that was the day we got released. We got meat. Oh, let's see, we had meat about 3 times. Legally, officially, they gave it to us. Lunar New Year, the first Lunar New Year we were back there, that would have been in '52. And we were captured in just about a year, because that comes in February. And they slaughtered a pig, and to them it was a good-sized pig, and to us it was about the size of a good-sized German Shepherd. And they slaughtered that, and that went around. There were in camp number 4. The town was Wiwan, was the name of that town up there in North Korea. There were about 600 guys in that camp, and we all ate of that pig. And then,
How large a piece did you get?
oh, about a ½ inch square, I guess, all the way around, with hair.
Oh.
See, they just shave it with a knife, you know. They don't take any real precautions on it. And it kind of tickled on the way down. But it was food, you know.
It was.
So then next New Year, they gave us fish. And what they do when they go fishing, well, they just go out in the middle of the river. They drop grenades down. When the fish float up, they use nets and they pick them up. And then they put them in a burlap sack. They dig a hole and they put them in the ground and let them ferment. Usually about 3, 4 months, 5 months. So this day we were sent out on a detail, and we had to dig up these burlap sacks with the fish in them, and they were just crawling with maggots. And we carried them down to the Chink headquarters where the kitchen was there, and it was about 1.5 miles, I guess. And we dumped them on the floor down there, and then we had to kind of scrape off the maggots. That was part of our detail. And cut off the head and the tail, and the head and tail went in one pot, and the body went in another pot. And they put them in, water, build a fire under them, and they say water boils when steam comes off of it. They don't wait for it to actually, how we see bubbles, well, they don't go for that. As soon as the steam comes off of it, they pull the wood out and conserve it. So they took the heads and the tails and they chopped them all up real fine, and that's what we got for our fish dinner.
Oh, God.
So I looked in my bowl when it was dished out, and I had a little tin spoon, like you used to get with a Dixie cup or something. And I looked, and I said to this guy next to me from Minnesota, Barkowitz was his name. I says, he was a great fisherman. I said, what does that look like to you? And he said, well, that's the eye. And I said, well, that's what I thought it was. And down the hatch it went. When I bit it, it was like cracking a walnut or something, But it was food, you look at it that way.
Yeah, and you get your hands on.
And so we just stayed down and loaded the dinghies, and we rebuilt the bridges that our Air Force knocked out, things of that sort. And we stayed in that camp there until, well, on May the 9th, I guess it was May the 8th, it was a Sunday, I don't know, I could look it up, in 1953, they came out with this notice that the sick and the most seriously sick and wounded are going to be exchanged. And I was one of 2 out of some 600 people that was elected to go home. So the next morning when we come up for detail, I didn't go out. And the chinks come up and they wanted to know why I didn't go in detail. And I told them, well, I'm going home and I don't want to miss the truck. And he said, well, then go home. So I didn't go home until the 6th day of August. And that was my penalty.
What were some of the morale problems? Were there any morale?
Oh, we didn't have any morale problems. Just guys dying every day. I mean, how does that affect your morale?
There was something about the rats. You used to eat rats and other
Well,
birds and dogs used to
You
run
eat
through
whatever the
there.
hell you can get your hands on. We ate just about everything that you can think of. Snakes, rats, dogs, cats. But, no, you were talking about the rats I mentioned to you once before. What happened? These huts are made out of mud, like I told you, and they have a thatched roof. And under the thatched roof and above the floor, they have what we know as a ceiling, and it's just lattice work going across there making squares, and then they paste newspaper on top of it. And that serves as insulation. So when they had all those wounded guys, they tried to keep us separated. And we were all in one room. And some of the guys pretty well beat up, And when it would rain, this paper would get wet. Then rats were up there in that straw or hay or whatever the hell it was. And they'd run across the ceiling and they'd fall down.
In a weak spot, right?
Yeah, and they'd come down and they'd land in our room. Well, then we went crazy trying to catch the damn thing, because when we got one, the chinks would let us put it on a hibachi and eat it. Cook it and then eat it.
What are the hibachis like?
Well, you know what, it's barbecue out in the backyard.
Well,
Same thing,
was it
just
like those?
charcoal. Well, theirs was a big pot. It was maybe a foot in diameter. And they had charcoal in there. And they let us go down there to the Chinese kitchen and cook the damn thing. And we'd split it up, all the guys in the room. But the guys are getting beat up, crawling over one another and hitting them with shoes or sneakers, whatever you had. So we had a little agreement. We had a little meeting of the minds, so to speak, and we had a little agreement. And that was that when a rat fell through the ceiling, whoever the person was that he hit first when he fell down, that person got to cook him and got the first bite. And that was like a delicacy, you got your choice. Morale.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
They didn't taste too good, did they?
No, none of it tasted any good, I'll tell you.
You used to have the maggots. This thing again, maggots in the rice. Well, I was told once that by my mother and all that you told these stories to, that you didn't eat until late at night.
Well, I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier.
No,
What we did, that's what I started to tell you and I got off on it. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, they got on to feeding us twice a day after things settled down. We were back there about a year and a half, I guess, and we got maybe not quite a year and a half. And they start feeding us twice a day, early in the morning, and then, I guess it'd be sometime around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. We didn't have any watches. So, you can see these maggots in this bowl and you push them over to one side. That's why the Chinese eat fast, I think. You push it all over to one side and, you try and get the soup in there without the maggots. So we got a committee together and we went up and we asked them if they could feed us after it got dark. And they wanted to know why. And we said, well, it's cold, and if we eat later at night after it gets dark, that food would help to keep our bodies warm through the night, because we had no heat, And so for some reason or another, they finally bought it after a while, and they start feeding us at nighttime. And we figured if you don't see the damn maggots, you pretend they're not there, and you just go ahead and eat.
Oh, gross.
But maggots are good, really, because, see, a lot of these guys had gunshot wounds, stab wounds and whatnot. And a maggot will eat all the decayed flesh around or in a wound. But after about 2 days, or 3 days, I think it is, a maggot starts to turn into a blowfly, and then he would reinfect the wound. So you had to be careful. But we used to take turns, get a buddy system going. And you take maggots off of one guy and put them into another, or off of one guy's wound and put them on another wound, and let them eat all that decayed flesh and whatnot out of there. And then you had to remember when you put it on. You know, did you put it on there yesterday or the day before? Because there was no way of knowing time or days or anything like that. But I think that helped to save a lot of lives, really. We had one American that was with us. He was in the veterinary corps in our army, and he helped to save many guys' lives. Because going through veterinary school, he learned a lot also, you know, with just about wounds and everything in general, you know. And I'm sure if a dog or a horse or whatever got shot, that the reaction or the treatment would be pretty near the same. Antibiotics and so forth, you know, as a human being. So he remembered a lot of that stuff, and he helped a lot of us. We had bury and stuff like that. He took care of us. We used to play around with the Chinks. We had a motorcycle club. Of course, we had no motorcycles. We'd get out, we'd get 10 or 12 guys. This is after we got well and we could walk around pretty good. And we'd get 10 or 12 guys out there in the company street, and we'd all pretend we had motorcycles, you know, and you kick the stand away and put your foot over it, you know, and start it up and all that, you know, and crank your hands up. I mean, I've never been on a motorcycle my whole life, and I don't have any desire to get on one now. But we make a lot of noise with our mouth, boom, 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 and all this shit, you know. Somebody would say, "Let's go," and we'd just run up and down the street, make a big circle, you know. You couldn't go out of the company, but we'd be riding around and all that, you know. Put our foot down when you go around the corner. I mean, I saw a few movies, guys riding them, saw them out in the street and all. And we had, pretend we had automobiles. Well, we'd get in, you know, close the door, and usually four guys at a time. There'd be, you know, two behind each other. And then one guy was driving, you know, so...
Taxi cab.
No, he'd get in and he'd start to drive. Well, he'd put it down, and we all had 4 speeds, you know, or, well, 3 speeds, you know, reverse. And he'd put it in first, you know, and he'd say on 4. When he'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, and our heads would go back, you know, he'd kind of lean back a little bit, and then we'd all march off in time, you know, and go riding down the street. He'd put his arm out, we're going to make a left-hand turn. When he'd say now, he'd start turning the wheel this way, and we'd all kind of lean to the right a little bit and make a left-hand turn. Goddamn Chinks used to stand there and they didn't know what the hell was going on. Somebody'd say, put the radio on, you know, and a guy would reach up there, you know, and he'd turn the dial around. And we had this Italian guy from Brooklyn, his name was Pucciarelli. And he had a pretty good voice, you know, and he'd start singing like Frank Sinatra, you know. Somebody'd say, stop the car, put the antenna up, I can't hear it right, you know. So he'd stop, and the guy would open the door and jump out, and put the antenna up, you know, and get back in and slam the door and say, on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, we'd all start out, lean backwards and take off. And we used to ride horses, and they'd call us up to headquarters, you know, or something like that, and we'd get out there, saddle up the old horse and jump up on him. I've been on a horse when I was a kid, and that was the last time. I guess I was about 12 or 13. But we get on the damn horse, and half the time I get on from the right side, and I found out you get on from the left. But they didn't think we had him, you know. And this one night I was called up for interrogation. And so I tied the old horse up, you know, outside headquarters, and this one guard, you know, he comes over, he says, why do you make the joke? I said, what do you mean make a joke? And he said, you know how to horse. I said, the hell I don't. You put your goddamn arm over here. I said, and he'll bite the damn. You bite it. Go ahead. Go ahead. If he puts his arm over here, I said, bite it. Kick him. Go ahead. And that chick started backing up, you know. He said, why you make jokes? I said, come on over here. Give me your goddamn arm. I'll see if you were joking. I said, that damn thing will bite you, baby. You better believe it. He's vicious.
Then you tell him, you said something about the horse. When you come over, you just take his arm off.
That's right. And I was standing there. I was petting the horse's face, you know, down his nose, you know. I reached in my pocket and I give him an apple or something. I don't know what the hell. I give him something to eat. You come inside. You come inside. I said, you don't go near that goddamn horse. I said, he's going to bite you. And I went over like I was whispering in the horse's ear, you know. I said, if he comes near you, you bite him. And when you bite him, you get him on the ground, kick him. Don't let him get up. I said, okay. And I patted him on the head, you know, and I walked on inside. They got in a little bit of a turmoil in there, and they all went out to see what the hell was going on with the goddamn horse, and they had some hardtack candy in there and some cigarettes. So when they went out, I dumped all the hardtack candy and cigarettes in my pockets, you know. They come back in, they were still flustered, they forgot all about the damn thing, you know, and they, you go back to your company, or back to your room. So I'm back to the room, and I pulled out the cigarettes and candy, you know. I said, hurry up, boy, they're coming after us. So everybody sat around, we smoked cigarettes and chewed hardtack candy. Guards come down, they pick my ass up, and out to the goddamn hole I went.
What the hole?
That
What
was
exactly is a hole?
solitary confinement. Our hole, well, we had several of them. One of them was a hole in the ground that we dug ourselves. They told it was going to be a vegetable bin. We were going to get fruits and vegetables from China, and that was how we kept them cold, you know. It was about 6 foot square, and it was about 9 foot deep, 12 foot deep, something like that. And they'd put a rope around your waist, and they'd lower you down a hole, and then they'd throw the rope in. And when you were ready to sign a confession that you were a bad student, why, we were students, they were instructors, why, then you could come back up out of the hole, if they accepted your explanation. And usually it was about, 4 or 5 weeks you stay down there. And you get fed once a day, if they remembered you. And then we had another hole, well, we call it the cellar door. And it's just like a regular outside door that opens up, you know, 2 outside doors. I forget the name of them now. There's a famous make door. But anyway, like if you're going into your basement. And it was made out of tin, and the ground was flat underneath of it. It didn't go down. And it was built out on a flat area where the sun hit it. And they put you in there and close the lid, and then the sun would come down and beat on it, and it kind of got warm in there. And then they would take sticks or, you know, big clubs, and then they'd bang on it. And, you know, like I said, it was all tin. And, you know, I got a headache once in a while. Usually had that before you passed out. There you only got fed every 2 days. And they had other various and sundry forms of play games that they call them. They used to take us out on put us on all fours on the ground, you know, like you're going to play horsey. And they'd strip you to the waist, and they'd pile your back up with snow. And they'd leave you sit there about 10 minutes, you know, and it becomes numb after a while. And then they'd take a leather belt, you know, a regular garrison belt, well, like our belts today, you know, they're about, what, 2-3 inches wide. And then they'd just start slapping you across the back. An effect that you might remember, if your ear gets real cold and somebody comes up and flips it with a finger, this, you know, will give you an idea what it might feel like. And then when the numbness wears off, why, then the pain starts. They take a 2x4 and make you kneel down, or lay down on your belly, and they put a 2x4 across your knees, and then they make you bend, come up on your knees. And try putting a stick behind your knees sometime and kneeling. And, you know, it gets awkward. Not the most comfortable position. And then they had a way of hanging you from a tree where actually you weren't hanging, per se. Your toes were touching the ground, but if you go to move your arm or your shoulder, then it tightened the noose around your neck. And if you happen to tighten it up too much, why, it would interfere with your windpipe, and consequently, why, they get a detail out and dig a grave, and, you know, sorry about that. And then there's another time, while snow up in Korea gets pretty goddamn deep, because we were right on, like I said, the Yalu River. And it was about waist high, and they took me out in a big field, and I walked out in the middle of the damn thing. I stood out there about 2 hours. That's when I got my frostbitten feet. I had a pair of sneakers on, and a heavy Chinese overcoat with nothing under it. And I don't know whether any girls are going to listen to this or not, but it was cold enough that
It will.
my privates got small enough that when I rubbed my backside, I felt a pimple, and I thought that was it. Well, I'll tell you, it was 58 degrees below zero, and that's pretty damn cold, I'll guarantee you. But we had one boy, we had a real fireman coming out of the hole. They had this little boy from Virginia, had a kind of a squeaky voice, you know, high pitched. So he was in the hole about 6 or 7 weeks, I guess. We had stolen some eggs off of one of the dinghies we were unloading. So you just crack the egg and eat it raw, you know, any way you can get food in you. And he got caught. So they threw him in a hole. Like I say, he wrote a confession. He was a bad student and all this crap. So they accepted it. He came out and he read it. Well, you had to stand in front of the company and read this confession. You know, well, we all knew it was bullshit. And all the chinks were there, the post commander and all the guards and what have you. So this kid figured, well, I'll put a little humor into this tonight, you know. So we had this formation, and he stands up there, and the chink commandant, you know, he says, now, Gray was the kid's name, Private Gray, will now tell us why he was the bad student. Read your confession. So Gray gets up there and he said, this is the story of the egg and I. And we went into a stir, and the guards figured, uh-oh, something's up. Back in the hall, so he did about 8 more weeks in the goddamn jail. I mean, you know, they had no sense of humor.
Yeah. You should talk about this thing about lifting bags. Now,
Well, we were down there unloading dinghies again, and barges and what have you, and they store or pack their food, like rice and sorghum and millet, in burlap sacks that average about 250 pounds. And of course, the American prisoners only average about 100 pounds apiece. And we're trying to struggle 2, 3, 4 guys carrying one of these damn things, you know. We had to go about 2 miles. And you come out of the water and went across about a 5 yards or 10 yards of beach, and then you went up a pretty steep hill. And you were on a road, and that's when you went down the road about 2 miles. And I'm telling you, them damn things just about killed us. So American ingenuity got to work, and me being the no good bastard that I am under those conditions, I guess. I got an idea, and we started talking with some other guys. Of course, you have nicknames for your guards, you know, and this one was called Rosie. If he wasn't a switch, I've never seen one. So, anyway, we got talking with old Swish, you know. Hey, Rosie. I says, I was talking with Banjo Eyes over there, and I said, he told me he can carry one of these bags all by himself, and you can't do it. He said, he's the only one in the whole guard company that can carry one. No. I said, yeah. And he said, no. And we got into one of these yeah bits, you know. So I says, well, why don't you prove it? I said, you go pick one up and carry it down there to the warehouse. And I said, and I'll go get Banjo Eyes and I'll show him you're carrying one. Okay. So he went down the goddamn barge, and like a fool, he picked the son of a bitch up, damn near broke his back, and he got it up on his shoulder, and he went jogging on down the goddamn road. So I went over and I got Banjo Eyes, and I said, little Susie carried one. I said, I bet you can't carry two. I said, 'cause, you know, he's just a little thing, you know. Well, yeah, me big, me strong. I said, well, show me. So he went over and he picks up one, and he got a couple of chicks to help him. They put another one on the other shoulder, and then dumb son of a bitch went running down. Susie come back, and we told Susie he carries two. I carry two. Oh, bullshit, you can't carry two. So old Susie went down there, and the chinks put him on his goddamn shoulder, and he went jogging down the damn road. So we're sitting on the beach by this time, you know. We're watching these chinks running back and forth doing our work. Huh?
How many of them were there? Just two?
Oh, Christ, no, there was about 1,000 guards.
Well, you got them all doing this?
No, we only got about 20 of them suckered in. We had them carrying 3 bags, one on each shoulder and then one across the back, tying them in. They go choking down the goddamn highway. And those Americans sitting there. You know, we thought back, you know, it was pretty funny, we thought.
What did you do? You said something about you tricked them and said something they had it. You made it into a game where you told them you didn't do this, or you didn't walk right, or you didn't skip right, or something.
Well, that was when Susie was trying to pick them damn bags up. She was trying to get that second one on there. And I says, you know, we went down, we talked on, you know, that's no fair. You got the guys to help you to put both bags on, you know. And what they were trying to do, they were trying to see who could go the fastest down and back again. Well, they come back empty, and they would run full steam all the way back, you know. And I told Susie, I said, you cheat. I said, you get guys to help you put the first bag on. Banjo Eyes and the rest of them, they put the first bag on themselves. No, I no cheat. So he started, Banjo Eyes and Rosie finally got started at the same time. And they started up, and I hollered over to Susie, you know. I said, hey, no. I says, you no good. I said, you pick up the wrong bag, or not the wrong bag, but you had the guys pick up 2 bags for you. And Banjo Eyes, he picks up the first one himself. So old Susie went back and counted to 10 and then started out again. Oh, they're dumb. They're stupid. But you get them in, you know, we get called in for interrogation. and they try to lure you with cigarettes and hardtack candy, and, you know. But they wouldn't give you any until you start talking to them, you know, give them, and for a little bit of information anyway. What division were you with, and how many men, and what area did you cover, and what was your assignment, and all this jazz. So they go up there, and most of the time, when we were up in the NCO camp anyway, the NCOs would go in, and I know myself in particular, and you know, you're looking at the wall, you're looking at the table, whatever, and one of the interrogators would say, "Why you no look at Commander? Why you no look at Commander?" So I leaned across the goddamn table, and I was about 3 inches away from his nose, and I stared him right in the goddamn eyes, you know. And he said, "Why you do that? Why you look at my eye?" I said, "Well, he told me I no look at Commander, so now I look at Commander. No matter where he looked, well, my goddamn eyes are right. You go back company. You go back company, you know." So I got out that time, and then most of the time, though, we just go up there, and they'd say, "What division you were with?" And I'd say, "Well, what difference does it make?" "We have to know what division you were with." And I'd say, "Well, I'll tell you that if you tell me about sex in China." No, we talk, you talk. We find out what division. I said, "Well, you tell me about sex in China." No have sex. No have sex. Where all these goddamn Chinese come from? No. You don't understand. I don't understand. I said, "I think you don't understand, you know." But, you know, we just get them on that subject, and they didn't want to talk about that. And that would kind of, you know, divert their mind a little bit, and we got out of the interrogation. Right before we got released, they had a cleanup campaign. They thought the American Red Cross was going to come through and inspect. And consequently, like I said, they had this big campaign on sanitation drive, if you will. So they told us, if you catch 20 flies, we'll give you a cigarette. If you catch a mouse, we'll give you a cigarette. If you catch a rat, we'll give you 2 cigarettes. So, you know, GIs and their ingenuity, we went out to the latrine or bathroom, which is nothing more than a ditch with boards across it, and went out there and got long poles and stirred all this stuff up, you know, human waste, and here come the rats out. We lucked out one time and found one with some eggs in it, so we split it open. We took the eggs out, and then we asked him for 1 cigarette for each of the eggs and 2 cigarettes for the rat, and he wouldn't do it. But we tried, you know. But they count the damn flies. You lay them up there on the desk, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ah, damn stupid bastards. But,
Oh, man.
What about tell us about the time when you hung the guy?
We had this guy, his name was Copeland, and he come from South Carolina. He's a funny son of a gun. So things are getting dull, I guess, is what the hell happened. And we had, like I said, about 35 guys in this room. And what it is, I guess when you go to bed at night, one time during the night, you kind of lay on your side and curl up your knees and all. Well, this is the way we used to sleep to keep, well, it was the only way you could sleep with, you know, get enough room. And the body heat from one person would pass on a little bit to the next one, and everybody stayed a little bit warm, you know. Of course, then you had a few guys extra, and they laid on your feet. But we run like a roster, and, you know, if you slept on the floor tonight, then you sleep on the top tomorrow night, you know, or maybe you get 2 nights on the floor. It was just a mud floor. But anyway, this one night, well, we decided to have some fun, so old Copeland got up and he found a rope, and we hung him. Well, we had the rope actually down around underneath his armpits and across his back, and then it came up and around his neck. But the part around his neck, we had a half hitch in there where it wouldn't slip. And the actual weight was between his shoulders and the back by his shoulder blades. And we threw it up over a rafter, and we hung him, you know. Well, somebody let out a goddamn yell, and a guard come running in, and he put a flashlight in the room, and he saw this guy hanging. Oh, Jesus Christ, he went running up to headquarters, and he's calling all the guards. Well, real quick, we got Copeland down, and threw the rope up on the roof, which was a thatched roof, and it blended right in there beautifully. And everybody was sleeping when the guards came back, and the post commandant come back, and the generals and colonels. And, these generals and colonels come down, and the place was in a turmoil there for the best part of an hour. They, you know, we all pretended we were asleep and all this kind of bullshit. And they finally took the guard that thought he saw somebody hanging, and they put him on the funny farm. They thought he had done blown his mind. On a more serious vein, to show you how serious the life is back here, we had, in camp number 3, that was the first camp I was in, there was an escape plan made up, and everybody was going to make it. I mean, you know, at least make the break anyway. No, don't know how many's going to get away. And it was our only chance, because we were on the we were on the China Sea then. And we were only about 200 or 300 miles from the 38th parallel. We didn't know where our American troops were, so possibly we could have been within 100 miles of our lines. So it was pretty elaborate, and all the wounded were being taken care of and everything. And once you get outside, you know, it's everybody for himself, except, you know, you buddy up, like I said, if somebody was wounded and couldn't make it on their own. And one little PFC went up and told the Chinks about it.
Oh, man.
And it was about 4 days later when they went out to the latrine and they picked up pieces of what they thought were human waste, and they found out it was a little PFC that was in the American Army. He was dismembered into pieces about the size of that microphone.
Why did they do that?
Well, we thought it was our life, and we thought it was worth one life to, well, at that time we had about 700 guys in camp. So,
You mean you did it?
well, I didn't say I did it.
Well, I
just
mean,
said it was-
some of the
the
guys-
soldiers did.
Well,
Some of the people,
You
you
mean
know.
the Americans, in other words.
well, we had British, we had Turks, we had, you know, United Nations with us at that time. And they broke us up where they, in camp number 4, when we were up in Weewant, when they broke the sergeants up, they also broke up the nationalities. They had the English in one camp. They were in company number 1. Well, it was all one camp, but they were in company number 1. They had the Americans, Caucasian type, in camp number, or company number 2. And they had the colored Americans in camp number 4. And, but they said that they didn't believe in segregation or anything like this, but they sure as hell broke us up. And we had a handful of Turks. They had them down there in one room by themselves. This is what I was meaning before when I said that, you know, they broke up the privates and PFCs and sergeants and so forth. You know, they segregated us by rank, and then eventually, well, they segregated us by nationality and then by color.
I hate to interrupt you, but there was something about you telling us a really funny event. They had this saying that all the children and people of North Korea.
Okay, I know what you mean. When we used to go out to work details, we'd go out to, well, what they do, they count you by the numbers. They didn't have roll call per se as we know it by name. They, you know, you count off, you line up and you count off. So we used to line up right outside the buildings where we slept. And then they'd march us there and they'd count us. And then we'd march us to the gate and they'd count us again. They'd open the gate, get us outside, and they'd count us again. And then we'd walk down to the river and they'd count us again, and we'd start working. And it was the same process coming back in again. Well, when we were walking down the road to the river, about 1.5 miles, a mile, and the little kids used to be out there lining the road, you know, it was something different. They saw Americans, you know. And we're, in respect to the Oriental, we're twice as large, you might say, you know. So we get down the street, and the kids were always taught, you know, Ma Si Tung. Well, you raise your thumb and you holler, Ma Si Tung. Well, he's God to them over there. He was the Chinese, and Kim Il-sung, pardon me, he was the Korean commander, you know, big wheel in North Korea. So every day we'd walk down the road, and these kids would, it was almost like a song, they'd holler. Ma Si Tung, number 1, they'd turn their thumb upside down, they'd say, Truman, number 10. So we had this big Polish guy with his name Tusky, John Tusky, and he came from up in Michigan, or Wisconsin, I beg your pardon, Wisconsin. And he was a big son of a gun. So he started hollering, every time they'd start hollering, Ma Si Tung number 1, Truman number 10, he hollers, Tusky number 1, Ma Si Tung number 10. And them kids, you know, they couldn't get onto it for a long time. I guess it was 6 months before they could say Tusky. And finally, these little kids sitting along the roadway, and they put their thumb up and they holler, Tusky number 1, Ma Si Tung number 10.
Oh!
The guards didn't like that word.
I thought they got to the point where they were saying Truman number 1, and
Well, they said Truman and they said Tusky and all this, you know. But we come back this one day, we come back from detail with this counting bit, you know. We were standing outside the gate, pardon me, final count before you can inside. And they said count off, so we counted off, you know, 1, 2, 3, and they got up to 39, I think it was. And this guard, I was right in the middle of the front rank, and this head guard, he reached in his back and he pulls out a pistol and he cocked it, and he said, "We go on detail with 38 men, now we have 39, I know can take back one extra man, so one man must die." And I'm standing right in front of that son of a bitch. And just like that, somebody said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it came out perfect. 38, right on the head. He held up in the air and squeezed the round off, and it was there too, baby. So they took us in the gate, and we were over that detail. But that was close.
What about communism?
Well, the way we lived over there, I'll make this real quick. I think we're getting near the end of the tape.
Right.
The way we lived, they blow a whistle and wake you up in the morning. Pardon me. They give you about 15 minutes. They bring a little dish pan around, a little bowl, whatever, with water in it. And well, everybody will wash up. There was like maybe 15 men in a squad. And one of these pans of water had to do for 15 minutes. It was cold water. So, you know, all the guys that were not wounded or sick or anything, like, you know, they were getting fresh water every day. Getting clean water, I'll put it that way. So we finally used the old military bit, you know, where you run a roster on it. So if you go first today, and then tomorrow morning you're last. And everybody got one day where you were first in the basin, you know. Well, then they'd come in and they'd swish that water around and throw it out, and then they'd dump the soup in there, and then, that, you know, some guys had a pair of socks left that they didn't take off of them, they'd wash them out, or you had a pair of shorts, you wash them out. Just swish the water around, you didn't rinse it out, there was no more water, you know. And then they just pour the soup in there, and then that's how you had to go to the kitchen with that and get your soup, and then they dish it out into the little bowls. But then they blow a whistle, and everybody went down to the river. Well, all the civilians went down.